Hello YouTube, and welcome to another Counterpoint Life DIY tutorial. Today we're going to be looking at low poly scenes in Blender. We're going to create this tree, add transparency to it and some animation, and then use the video sequence editor to add it to footage. So let's get into it. So we're going to open up Blender. We have got our default cube here, which we will keep. I'm going to hit N to bring up the navigation pane here for the object that's selected. I'm going to set a start for my screencast keys, and they're going to appear down the bottom left here, so keep an eye on them. I'll try and shout out the keys I'm using as I go as well. Alright, so we're going to zoom in and create our scene. I'm using the middle mouse wheel just to scroll in, zoom in there, and we're going to scale this down. The way we're going to do that is by pressing S, and then without moving the mouse button I'm going to hit Z, and then I'm going to scroll it down by moving the mouse around. Alright, I'm happy with that. I'm going to duplicate that, so Shift D, and then again I'm going to just hit Z so I can move my new one up on the Z axis, and I'm going to do it again. Now the top one I actually want a little bit smaller than the others, so I'm just scrolling in, and I'm going to hit S, Z, I'm going to make it a little bit thinner. Then I'm just going to left click on this Z widget and bring it down. Okay. I'm going to go into top view by using the numeric shortcuts on the numeric keypad, 5 and 7. If you don't have those, you should buy a numeric keypad, they're really cheap. If you don't want to do that, you can go down to view and you've got another way to get there. Alright, what I want to do is create a little bit of interest in this top layer, so I'm going to add one of these corners, going to make it come up a little bit. And I'm going to go into edit mode to be able to do that. So hit tab and it will go into edit mode, and you can see I've got the whole top section selected. I only want the top face really, so I'm going to come down here where it says vertex select, and I'm going to select faces. I'm going to right click on that top face. Now you can see that's the only thing that's selected, and I'm going to subdivide it, and you can bring up the menu to do that by hitting W and click subdivide, or it is actually over here as well. I'm going to subdivide it a few times. Alright, so that's what I want. I am going to hit tab to come out of there. Actually I do want to be in that, but I just don't want to be on faces now, I want to be on vertices. Hit A to deselect all. I'm going to use the lasso tool, so hold control, and then left mouse button to drag around the ones that you want to grab. And then I'm going to just bring those up, and I'm just going to click individual ones to make it a little bit more interesting, like that. And great, we've got what we want in the corner there. Okay, the next thing we need to do is create our tree. So I'm going to hit A to deselect everything, tab to go into object mode, A to deselect everything again, zoom out a little bit. I'm going to hit Shift A to add a mesh. And the mesh I want is a cone, and I'm just going to move that up by using the actual widget there, and we're going to edit this cone a little bit. I'm going to hit tab, go into edit mode. I'm going to bring in some of these vertices like that and bring them up, just because really. Maybe one on this side. Just using the right mouse button to select it, and then the left mouse button when I'm using the widget. Okay. Happy with that? I'm going to go hold down Shift and the middle mouse button to move the whole lot around and zoom in again. And hit tab to go into object mode, Shift D to duplicate, Z to bring it up on the Z axis, and then I'm going to hit 5 and then 7, 5 again, and I'm going to rotate this. While it's selected I'm going to hit R, move it around a little bit, and then I'm going to duplicate it again, Z, up I go, And I'm going to scale this top one by hitting S and just moving the mouse to scale the top one down a little bit, just a little bit smaller. and I'm going to move it down like that. We've got the best part of our tree. Need to add the trunk, so hit A to deselect everything. Shift A to add another mesh. We're going to use a cylinder. I'm going to hit S while it's still selected and scale the whole thing down. Then I'm going to drag it up because I can't see it. There we go. It's about the right size, just not long enough, so we're going to go with S to scale it, Z to do that. I'm going to join it to the tree, and it's starting to look alright. Now I actually want all of this to be one object, so while that is selected, I'm going to hold Shift and select the cones that I've created, and I'm going to join them using this button over here, or Control J. Now if I move it, the whole lot is going to move as one object. And we're going to start by adding some materials, so colors to this. You can see that I've clicked over here, and wherever I click, the 3D cursor goes. If you want that back in the center, just come over here and go 0, 0, and 0. Doesn't really matter, we've created all of our objects. Alright, so we've got this tree selected. I'm going to come over and add a material using the material tabs over here. Create a new material. And you might see that the material panel looks slightly different to yours. I'm using Blender Render, or it might look the same. I know a lot of you guys are using cycles for this, which is probably a bit of overkill really for low poly stuff. But we'll go ahead and we'll use cycles, just because. But if you do, can I suggest you go to the user preferences, go to System, come down here, and we're going to select CUDA so that we can actually use our graphics card, our GPU to render this out, which is one advantage of cycles over Blender Render. Okay, also go into the add-ons, and you should have a look in here and see some of the things that might be of use to you in Blender that aren't there by default, and just check the boxes that you want. Something that might be useful to you would be the export and import options, so exporting things to After Effects, importing things from GIMP, or importing images as planes is a really useful one, so check both of those. All these add-ons, some of them work well, some of them don't work so well. You can use them in 3D View or the video sequence editor, but check it out anyway. Okay, so now that we've done that, if we go to the Render tab, you'll see we can now select the device. We're going to select GPU Compute. Alright, now we're adding a material to this tree. So we'll go to the material pane. We've got the tree selected. I'm going to label this leaves. We are going to add some green to those leaves and make them a dark green. And our whole tree is green. That's fine because most of it will be green. But I do want a trunk that's brown, so I'm going to add a new material. You don't have to label them, but I am. I'm going to make that trunk brown, like that. Now I need it just to apply to this trunk part, but it's all one object. So I'm going to go into edit mode, and it's got the trunk selected because that was the last thing I did. It's also got some other random vertices selected, so I'm going to shift click to deselect those. Alright, it's looking good. I'm going to hit assign. Now my trunk is brown and my leaves are green, and just to check that I'm going to hit F12 to render this out, and you can see that that's what's happened. Hit escape to go back into the 3D view, tab to get out of the edit mode, and I'm going to use the widget tool to plant this tree into the ground like that. Now we need to color the earth down here, so I'm going to select on that. I'm going to go into, hit tab to go into edit mode, and I'm going to give that a color. I'm going to make the bottom one brown. It's actually making the whole lot brown. That's okay, we'll deal with that next. Okay. Go into object mode. I'm going to select this middle one, and I'm going to hit tab. I'm going to hit P to make it a separate selection. And I'm going to create a new material for that. I'm going to make this new material grey, like that. I'm going to hit assign. Now my middle layer is grey and the rest of it is brown. And this top one, I actually want green grass on the top, but the sides can stay brown. So maybe we'll just move this tree out. Control Z, I'm moving the wrong thing. Maybe I'll go into object mode, I'll select the tree. I'm just going to move this tree out of the way for the moment. And I just want this top face green, so select it, go into edit mode, make sure faces is on, zoom in a little bit. I'm going to use the lasso tool, holding down control. Make sure I'm just getting those faces. And I'm going to bring it around here and shift click to add the others. Right click, that is. And we're going to add a new material. I'm going to make that green grass. Like that. Happy with that? Press assign. And now I've got green grass. And I'm just going to hit F12 to check my work. There it is. Happy. Tab to get into object mode. I'm going to select this tree. I'm going to plant it. Boom. Now I'm going to animate this. So I'm going to come onto the top view. And we're going to animate it over 2 seconds. So my timeline, it's going from 1 frame up to 250. We're going to do it at 30 frames a second, so I just need it to go to around about 60. So I'm going to type in 60 as my end. I'm going to go back to the beginning, and I'm going to set a keyframe for the animation. And the keyframe is going to relate to location and rotation and scale, because we're just going to rotate it around 360 degrees. So hit I, go down to lock scale, click it. Now we're going to go to the very end. Now I've only applied it to what's selected, right? Actually I want to apply it to everything. So I'm going to shift click on each of these layers. And I need to give it a starting point, so I'll go back to 1. I'm going to hit I again, so I'm sort of going over this. Alright, so now we've got a starting point. We're going to go to the last frame. I'm going to hit R while everything is selected, and I'm going to rotate it all the way around. Something like that. Now I'm going to hit I again to insert another keyframe, apply to location, rotation, and scale. I'm going to click it, and now we've got a point A and a point B, and Blender is going to work out what happens in between. And so if I scrub through on my timeline, you can see that it is actually animated now. So it spins, which is what we want. Okay, deselect everything. I'm going to hit 0 on the numeric keypad to go to the camera view. And I'm going to come over here and click this button, lock camera to view. That's going to mean that everything that is in this that I see now is what the camera actually sees. So we're just going to position this using the same buttons that we did before. Shift and middle mouse wheel to sort of pan, and just the middle mouse wheel to move around. Looks pretty good. That's about right. Okay. I'm just going to hit F12 to see what I can see when it's rendered. That's exactly what we want. I'm going to right click on this little guy here. This is our light, and it's going to bring me up a new tab here for the lamp. I'm going to set it to sun. I'm going to crank it up to maybe 0.4 or so, and I'm going to right click and drag it right over the top of everything. Like that, move it up a bit. Okay, now we've still got this grey though. We want that to be transparent. So we're going to go to our render tab. We're going to crank up the resolution to 1080. We're going to put our frames to match our animation, so 30 frames a second. we're going to come down to the Film tab here, and we're going to click Transparent. Now if I hit F12, you'll see that we've now just got transparency around the tree, which is what we want. Alright, so we need to output this to a folder actually, because what we're going to do is going to use portable network graphics, so PNGs. We're going to end up with a whole bunch of pictures, so not actually a video file. And the reason we want to do that is because that's one way of being able to preserve the transparency. You could also use AVI, I think you can do that, but it does make enormous files. So PNG is a far better option. Make sure that RGBA is selected for alpha, because we've added an alpha channel, and everything else should be fine. So I would suggest that you put these in an actual folder so they're all together, and give each the ones just whatever you want to call them, and hit accept. I've already done this, but you would hit accept. Then you're going to be coming up here and you're going to hit this little display. We're going to change that to keep UI so that we don't render it to the screen and to the file. I'm going to hit animation. Alright, once you've finished, you're going to end up with a folder full of pictures, PNGs, of this little tree. Now the background comes up white, it's actually transparent. Alright, that's what we want. In the original, you saw there was a shadow underneath it as well. That's actually just faked by creating a little shadow as a PNG with transparency, so we might go ahead and we'll do that now. So we're going to open up GIMP. GIMP is just an open source image editing software, so it's free, but you can use Paint or Photoshop or whatever it is that you normally use. And we're going to create a new image at 1920 by 1080 or whatever it is that you want to use in your final footage, but that's pretty standard. We're going to feather the edges. We're going to expand from the center. And we're going to put this on a new layer with transparency. Now GIMP seems to lag pretty badly with my screen capture software, so I will speed this up slightly. We're just going to expand something like that. We're going to make it a dark grey. Okay, so if we're going to fill it in, if I turn off my background, there we go. I'm just going to make that a little bit more transparent. There we go, about to 80%. And I need to export this now as a PNG file. I'm just going to put it on the desktop and we're going to call it shadow. I've already made one, we'll call it shadow 1. Export. We don't want to compress it, it's going to be tiny anyway. Done. Okay, so once you've exported that, you're going to end up with a PNG, portable network graphic image that looks like this. So here's our shadow, all the white is transparent, which is what we want. And we're going to go into Blender. When you load it up, you're going to get the default cube. We don't need that on this occasion. We can come up to this menu up here, and we're going to go down to the VSE, the video sequence editor, and you are in a sequence editor like you would have in a bunch of other programs. I've already loaded up a clip here, and it's loaded in on track 1 is the actual footage. This green one is the audio. I don't want the audio, so I'm going to right click on that. I'm going to delete it. This looks a bit small, so I'm going to bring my mouse over here and use the scroll wheel to make it a little bit bigger so I can see what I'm doing. Down the bottom here you can see we've got our timeline like we did in the 3D view. A lot of the shortcuts and keys are the same in terms of adding things. We've got play forward. We can go to the very beginning or the end, or we can scrub through by frame. We can also scrub through using the arrow keys to scrub through by frame. Or we can actually just grab the playhead, left click on it and drag it through. Alright, we're going to add our shadow and we're going to add our tree, and the way that we do that is the same way I added this, and that is by Shift A. The clip that you use will probably be a movie clip. We're going to add the shadow, which is actually an image, so I select image, go to the desktop, it was saved as shadow, there it is, add image. Brilliant. We're also going to add the image sequence, so again, image, go to the desktop, look at that folder with low poly, and I'm going to select all of them by hitting A, and add image sequence. Alright, now I'm going to drag this up onto track 4. You'll see why shortly. Okay, so we've got all of our elements here. The shadow needs to be under the tree, and both of those need to be on top of the other footage. So I've got them ordered like that, so as if you're looking top down through all of these strips. But we should be able to see the line, and we can't. And it's because of our blending modes over here. So I'm going to set the blending mode to overdrop on the shadow and on the tree. Now we're getting somewhere. The shadow, as you can see, ends a lot quicker than the tree does. Because it's an image, I'm just going to come down onto its strip. I'm going to go to the end here where this little arrow is, and I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to draw it out till it's the same length as the tree, and I'm going to left click to keep that selection. If I keep drawing it out and I don't left click, it just goes back to where it was. Alright, I need to move these around and resize them a bit, so I'm going to have to add some effects. So I select the strip, Shift A, come down to an effects strip. I want to add a transform. I'm going to do the same thing to the tree, and we've lost our transparency. And that's because it's actually taking the data from those strips and applying it to this new strip. So I need to change the blending mode of those transform strips to overdrop. Now I can resize things. If you scroll down here, you've got all of the elements that you can change for each strip. And on a transform strip, we can change the scale. So I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller. I'm going to move it over about there. Bring it down a bit. Maybe not quite that small. Okay, and I'm going to do the same for the tree. So I select the strip for the tree, uniform scale, bring it down over here, up a bit. My shadow is not dark enough, so I've selected that strip. I'm going to come down the bottom and I'm going to add a modifier. In this case it's a curve, so I'm just going to give it a bit more color. There we go, a bit more contrast. Now if I scrub through, that's kind of working a bit better. The tree looks a bit bright, so I'm going to select on it, and I'm just going to back off its saturation just a little bit, like that. And we're done pretty much. The only thing is we've got a whole lot of line after this event. So I'm going to come to about here. I'm going to right click on this clip. I'm going to press Shift K. It's going to cut it. I'm going to right click on the bit I don't want and delete it. Now to render this out, I just need to have the playhead where I want the end of my actual strip to be, and now what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to hit E, and that's going to trim it to size. I'm going to go up here to the default section, and I'm going to set the render settings. First thing I want to do is frame rate at 30 so that our frame rates match. We're going to put this up to the full 1080p. Don't need to see it as it renders, so I'm going to keep UI. And we're going to change this PNG to a video format. The one I like to use is XVID, the encoding. I'm going to put it to H.264, but you can do whatever you like. I just like that one because it keeps it reasonably small. Bitrate is 25 kilobits. We're not going to do anything to do with audio, so there's no audio codec, but you can select MP3 or AAC or whatever you want to use. And the last thing we need to do is add a file name to this, so you can just put it wherever you want to do that on your desktop and call it whatever you like. This is just going to be a single file, movie file. Once you're happy with all of that, you just need to press animation and it will render it out. Okay, so here are some examples that I've made earlier. Here it is in the city, also planted in my front yard, and at the zoo again. So in the middle of the road, in the front yard, and about to be eaten by a hippo. I'm sure you could do a whole bunch of stuff with this and apply it to your own needs. If you found this useful, don't forget to hit that like button. If you want more content like this, subscribe to my channel, and you can check out some of the other stuff that I've got there. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.